And welcome inside the Pitt Studios here at the Peterson Events Center. Jeff Hathorn with the head coach of the Panthers, Jeff Capel.
I haven't been in the studio in a while.
And it's kind of cool because volleyball is practicing. NCAA tournament is Friday and Saturday here at the Peterson Events Center. Of course, a big game on Sunday at 2 o'clock,
Yep.
ACC play. We're going to get through all of that. I want to start off and just ask you, 7 games in, what are some impressions you have about your group?
Well, I really, really like my team. I think we have a chance to be a good basketball team. I think we've shown that. Some areas where we have to improve are we have to be able to play consistently hard all the time. We have to be able to. I thought the games in New York against Florida and Oregon State were great for us because it introduced us to a different style of what teams will try to do to us. Florida was very, very physical, and they really tried to pressure our guards and wear them out. I thought we learned from it, and we got better against Oregon State. I thought we were better because of that against Missouri. We just couldn't make a shot against Missouri, and I thought that got to us a little bit. But I like where we are. I still think we have a large room for growth. And I like the fact that we've had really good attitudes, and our guys want to be good.
As you're still growing, is it kind of tricky to say, okay, we're this team because you said we're still growing?
Yeah, well, there's some things that have to be absolutes, and I think that's what we've seen, at least from a coaching staff. And we talked to our guys. We were off yesterday, and so when we got together today, we talked about it. Our game against Missouri reminded me of when we played Florida Gulf Coast. What I mean by that is that we were ready to play. We got off to a really good start. That first 12 minutes, we defended very, very well against Missouri. They had 17 points, but then we kind of let up a little bit. And at the under 4 minute timeout, we had a 5 point lead. We go into halftime down three. And that's where we have to get better. If you really look at our last 3 games against Florida at the under 4 timeout, we were up 3. We go into the half down 5. Against Oregon State at the under 4 minute timeout, we were up 18. We go into the half up 12, 6 point difference. And then what I just mentioned about this game. And so we have to be able to be consistent in how hard we play. We did that for the most part against Oregon State, except for that one lapse. And against Oregon State, we didn't allow our inability to make shots affect anything because we really defended. Against Florida, I thought we got a little frustrated. We pressed, and that affected our defense in some spots.
So is that mostly mental?
It's mostly mental toughness. That's the big thing. And again, we have guys that are playing a lot of minutes for us that are very new to this level. And so being able to have to understanding and then being able to do that, you have to sustain this. You have to be able to concentrate. You have to be able to focus. You have to be able to beat tired. Sometimes you have to beat fatigue. And then you can't get down on yourself or just get down and go inward when you're not making a shot.
It's interesting. I think the last time when we're in the Pitt Studios here at the Peterson Event Center that we were here, I think we had talked about practice and how tough it was to have the type of competitive practices you need. How much has that changed for you?
It's changed. We have to be smart about it because we have 11 scholarship players right now because Papa's hurt, and so at times in practice you don't really have a sub. Sometimes if somebody's banged up or whatever, and so the competition part is there, but we have to be smart about it. I didn't think we had the best practices leading up to Missouri either. And that's the thing we talked about, like our preparation, our attention to detail, our focus, all of that stuff has to be at a really, really high level all the time. To be who we want to be, then we have to understand that like those things have to be there all the time. And for the most part, they have been. That's why it's glaring for me when it's not. I showed our guys today on tape just a few possessions defensively. Like, we're not in the stands. Like, guys are just standing, so we're late. We're a half second late to a rotation, or somebody drives us, or we're not in the stance, so we don't rotate. When we're firing, man, we're in a stance, and because of our length and athleticism, we're able to cover up a lot of stuff.
Panthers host Clemson at 2 o'clock on Sunday. There is an opportunity for a family four-pack, $200 for 4 people. You get $40 worth of concession vouchers,
Nice.
and you sit baseline tickets. And as you said in the past, I mean, crowd is a big deal. It's something that you noticed the first game when you saw the zoo there ready to go.
Yeah, the zoo has been awesome all year, and we're incredibly grateful for it. We need, I'm looking in the camera, we need a great crowd on Sunday. I mean, Clemson, I think, is one of the better teams in our league. They just went on the road and won at Alabama, who was a top 20 team. They're older, they're good. We need a great crowd, and hopefully the people will come out. I know the zoo will, and hopefully everyone else will. And it is noticed, it's appreciated. We need it rocking in there. And hopefully the people that are on the court can bring some great mojo, and we can make some shots again.
It was a heck of a game last year. We'll discuss that as well. I want to ask you the challenges for younger players as they start putting stuff on tape as they go through the early parts of their career, as we continue on the Jeff Capel Show on the Pitt Panthers Radio Network. Inside the Pitt Studios here at the Peterson Events Center. And Jeff, you know, it's great to start your career with a triple-double, but it also grabs a lot of attention, not just from fans and media, but from opposing coaches. What is your advice? What do you talk to Bub about? And what are defenses doing differently, when this guy bursts on the scene?
Yeah, well, again, that's something we saw up in New York against Florida, and they really were very physical with them, picked them up full court, something they had not done all year. I mean, we watched every game that they played. They had not played like that. They tried to keep a fresh guy on them, picked them up full court, very physical, tried to touch them. Ball screens, they tried to send them left, so they tried to weak it. But just the physicality. I thought Oregon State tried to do some of it. They aren't as talented as Florida, but they tried to do it. And then Missouri, same thing. Now, Missouri plays that way anyway, but just keeping a fresh guy on them, trying to pick them up, trying to wear them out. The thing we talk about is, again, I thought he was terrific in handling it in the second half against Florida. One of the great things about him, about Bub, is that he's able to figure things out in real time and to make adjustments. And he's really smart, so he's able to, you can tell him, and normally once you tell him once, he's got it. I thought he was magnificent against Oregon State with it. I mean, he got off the ball quickly, and it didn't equate in points for him, but a lot of assists. If we shot the ball better, he could have had, I think, a double-figure assist game. And I thought he made some outstanding passes against Missouri as well. The thing with him is that all of this is new. This is a kid that wasn't a top 100 guy. And so you have to remain who you are in the midst of all of this, because it's a lot. It's a lot. Like, his whole world has changed after his first 4 college basketball games.
Right.
Now, all of a sudden, there are people talking about you may be a one and done. I mean, that's the reality.
Right.
Like, it's all these different things. We've had more NBA scouts at our practice from September until we started playing games than we had in my first 5 years combined. And so how do you handle all of that? Number one, you have to remain humble. You have to keep the main thing, which is our thing, which is our team and our season. And he's such a good teammate, and so just trying to help him navigate all of this stuff. There are more people wanting his attention. There are more people wanting to be around him, to talk to him, and just to understand that you don't have to talk to everybody. You don't have to entertain. You have to be who you are. You have to be this humble, hungry kid from Baltimore that came here with a chip on his shoulder. And you can't think that you've arrived after 7 games.
And I guess you have to have fun too, right?
Absolutely.
It can't be a stressful
You can't let it steal the joy now, because there are expectations. One of the things we talked to our team about before the season is that this is the first time since I've been here that we're coming into a season with expectations on us. And now, because of the start that he got off to, you know, there may be some expectations of him. You're not going to get a triple double all the time. Like that very rarely happens in college basketball, period. It rarely happens in the NBA. There's certain guys that are able to do it, but if you look throughout the history, there are not a lot of guys that have a lot of career triple doubles on any level of
Right.
basketball. Um, and so you can't, you got to play the game the right way. Your mind has to be the right way. You got to be a great teammate, which are all the things that he does.
I mean, it's impossible to avoid that outside noise. I mean, phones. I mean,
Yeah, you can't now
yeah,
because of
yeah,
phones. I mean, I told our guys today, I think playing college athletics, college basketball now is harder than it was when I played because there's so many different ways they can get to these kids. Social media, the DMs, obviously phone numbers and texts and calls and Snapchat. I mean, all these different things like that. And yeah, like when I say his world changed, like everything. I mean, I had a conversation. I can't remember after what game, but I had a long conversation with his dad about, okay, we need to protect him. How do we handle this? How do you guys want to handle all these different things that are happening
jeez.
right now?
I saw he and Jalen and KJ at the women's game
Yep.
yesterday, and it seemed like they were enjoying it. Like they were enjoying that college experience. You
Yes.
you talked to your guys about like, hey, go out and see the other athletes,
Yeah.
watch the other
Well, the
games.
thing I tell them, and I've told them since I've been here, since I've been a head coach, like be a student. Don't just think of yourself as an athlete. Like be a part of the university. One of the regrets that I have when I was in college, I was so into basketball and I loved it and I still do, but I didn't do other stuff. And you can't sometimes athletes have a tendency to feel only comfortable with athletes. So one of the cool things, I was here when our women played volleyball against Louisville and I saw our guys down there. But then I saw them leave. Like I went, into my office to the bathroom. I came back out, and they were gone. So the next day, I said to them, like, "Yo, like, why did you guys leave?" They went to Duquesne to the women's game.
Really?
Our women were playing Duquesne, and then they came back for the fifth set.
Yeah, there
And
was
so,
time. It was a
yeah,
long match.
and so, but like these guys, like they go to soccer games. Like they are into it. Like they love being at Pitt. They love it, which is one of the reasons I love them. I love being around my team. Um, and these guys, I think it's a special group. I think people that watch us, I think they have the same feeling when they see the genuine care they have for each other. It's similar to how we had it last year.
We just got done with the ACC SEC challenge. It was the ACC Big Ten challenge before. I want to ask you, are those good for college basketball? And hang on to that.
Okay.
We'll tease that ahead as we continue on the Jeff Capel Show on the Pitt Panthers Radio Network. All right, so just done with the ACC SEC challenge. Fans, I think, really get into it,
Yeah.
especially from their regions, about the pride of their teams. And is it good for the game?
I think it's great. I mean, I grew up watching the ACC Big East Challenge, and that was awesome. And then it became the ACC
There are a few
Big Ten.
players in those games.
No
huh?
question, man. Well, college basketball was way different back then. I mean, when you think about the players in college basketball and the teams, I mean, it was so different because you had grown men too. But I think it's really good. I think if you can have these early season matches and these types of games, competition, I think it just gains interest. It fosters interest in the game. Right now everyone's in football, the
Right.
NFL, college football, and things like that. I think anytime you can have events, whether it's these tournaments or the ACC SEC Challenge, I think it's great for college basketball.
Could there be even more
I think,
in the span of a year? I'm saying.
yeah, I
If
think it
you
could be. I think you could have different types of challenges. I mean, one of the cool things on the women's side is that they had like some stuff early this year. Like, I think Notre Dame and South Carolina went to, I don't know if it was Ireland, London, and played, which was really cool. So I think there could be more.
scheduling is something that I think fans are fascinated about,
Yep.
and how I'm sure it depends on the maturity of team, what you're looking to get. Like, how does that whole process work as to put a schedule together for a year?
Well, it's even more difficult now because you don't know your team and you don't know. You could think you're playing. You can look at someone's roster at the end of the year and you could schedule them and think they're going to be one thing, and then all of a sudden they have a completely different team. So it's harder. But to me, you have to try to like figure out who your team is, and then try to schedule according. I thought this year one of our thoughts was, okay, we did a scrimmage, a closed scrimmage. We did that with Georgetown. I thought that could help us. Last year, we played the first game, UT Martin, and then we jumped right into high major, and we didn't fare well because we hadn't done that yet. So I thought playing Georgetown would help us, and then I thought there was a buildup. I thought North Carolina A&T was a certain level. I thought Binghamton was better. I thought Florida Gulf Coast was better than them. I thought Jacksonville was better than those three, and we thought all four of those would help prepare us for this gauntlet that we're getting ready, that we're in the midst of right now.
There's so much that goes into it. I mean, I don't think people understand. And then there are people that I'm sure for a mid major or low mid major, this is a big deal for their athletic department.
Oh, no
to come and
question.
play.
No question. I remember when I was the coach at VCU, and it's not the VCU that it is now. We helped get that started, but we were pretty good and nobody wanted to play us, so it was really hard to get games. We look at all kind of different things, like what styles. There's certain styles that, I think we'll look at it, and Brian Regan does the scheduling for us, and he'll bring it to me, and, okay, well, this team plays 85% zone. Well, do we want to do that? We may look and say, okay, we like that may not be something we want to do in the past because we're going to play Syracuse, so let's throw in a game there. This team presses. This team plays a certain way offensively. So it's all kind of things that you look at trying to put yourself in a position of how are you going to get better, and then how can you put yourself in the best position, hopefully, to get in that large bid in the NCAA tournament. But it's crazy because you can schedule a team that you think is going to be pretty good, and then they're bad.
I was just going to say.
If you think about last year, our best win was probably at Northwestern, and they were picked second to last in the conference in preseason. Now they finished second, but us going to Northwestern and winning like we did, that probably helped us more than anything.
Or to your earlier point, I mean, you get a team and then they have a coaching change and their style change. All of a sudden, the team you thought you were playing isn't.
No question.
But
no question. I mean, there have been times when, you've scheduled a team you thought was going to be really good, and somebody gets hurt, and they're not, and so that win kind of brings you down because of their RPI or the net or whatever goes into all this stuff now.
I don't know how they figure all that stuff
out. I don't either. That was the most frustrating thing for me last year because we were good. We were a good basketball team, but the computer was ranking us. And, it just, margin of victory. And there's something about that just doesn't sit right with me. Like, we played Northwestern, it probably would have been better for me not to sub. I was talking to a coach, in our league, and that's what he started doing later in the season. Like, they would be up or they would be down. And he's telling his team, like, go on a big run so we don't lose by 20. So we lose by 12, and all of a sudden the computer sees that and they're looking at it. Or you keep your starters in and you try to run the score up even more. I mean, there's something that's not right about.
Yeah, I mean, you've coached, your father coached, like running it up on a team that doesn't have it just doesn't seem like that's
no
what
question.
You want to do.
Like I said, again, Chris Collins, head coach of Northwestern, is one of my best friends. I mean, we probably could have, the way we were playing that night, we probably could have won that game by 50 points. But we stopped running. We stopped, we subbed about 5 minutes left. We won by 29, but it's a thing. It's just, you also want to reward guys. These guys practice hard. The guys that maybe don't get as many minutes, the walk-ons, all those things like that. I mean, thank goodness Fish scored at the end of the season last year.
But remember that scene, and fans remember that scene, and how not just the crowd, but the team got into those guys that sacrificed so much to finally get an opportunity and to rob them of it because you're looking at a computer.
At a computer. And that's the thing that just, I think the computers and the analytics stuff should be a part of it, but it can't be the whole thing, the whole equation. And unfortunately, that's the way it is sometimes, a lot of times now.
Before we get into Clemson, when we come back, I want to ask you, basketball lost a legend earlier this month.
Yeah.
I want to get your thoughts on the impact that Bobby Knight made on college basketball as we continue. It's the Jeff Capel Show on the Pitt Panthers Radio Network. He was one of those coaches that was polarizing. You didn't just have a opinion of Bobby Knight. You either loved him and the way that he has intensity, or you thought the other side. What were your impressions of Bob Knight?
I think he's the most brilliant basketball mind the game has seen. I think he was brilliant. I had a chance to spend some time with him when I was the head coach at Oklahoma in the Big 12 meetings, and just listening to him in there and talking about the game. And my relationship goes back because my college coach played for him. And so it's crazy because I watched, this was last year, it was on, I watched the documentary. They had a documentary on their 76 team that was undefeated, the last undefeated college basketball team to win the championship. And the year before in 75, Coach K was a GA. And he always talked about that team, the 75 team, was better. I think Scott May broke his arm, and they lost one game in the NCAA tournament. But I'm watching this documentary, and I'm watching him coach his team back in 76, the footage. And I'm listening to it, and I'm like, that's Coach K. Like, everything he's saying, the cadence, how he sounds.
Really?
Yeah, it's exactly the stuff that he said to us. And I know the love that Coach had for him, and the impact that he had on him. And those guys that played for him, man, the majority of them, like, they swear by him. They do. And one of the coolest things I thought was when he finally went back to Indiana to a game. I remember watching it, man. I was emotional watching it. And Coach K used to always say, when I was worked at Duke, he would always say that if he never left Indiana, the record would be where nobody could touch it. But it's unfortunate that he had to leave Indiana. And that's the polarizing part about him.
I've been there for a game when he coached Indiana, and the team would come out and they'd have those cream or those candy cane warm-ups, and everybody would be excited, and then all of a sudden, I mean, the teams are out on the court, you would hear a roar, and you're sitting and think, what in the world is going on that's causing this roar? And you look, and coming out of the tunnel, tugging at the sweater, how he used to do that, and the place would go crazy.
So when I was in college, my first year, I had heard from my teammates that he and Coach K had a falling out. So they didn't talk for a while, and I think this has been publicized.
Yeah, it has.
And Coach Knight would do stuff. Like, he would come to the Durham, Chapel Hill area and go hang out with Coach Smith, to mess with Coach, to, like, do stuff like that. And so I had heard all of this stuff. So my junior year, if we win the first game of the Great Alaska Shootout and Indiana wins, we're going to play them. And so that's what ends up happening. I'm in warm-ups, like going through layup line. I can't pay attention because I want to see, like, what's going to happen, because I had heard all these stories.
Right.
And that's the first time I ever saw him in person. So when he comes walking out, I remember thinking, like, man, this dude is big. I couldn't believe how big he was. And then he comes up. Now, this is Coach K. This is my coach. This is back-to-back national champion, the first one since UCLA. And he comes out, and Coach Knight comes behind him and grabs him and just puts him in a headlock and, like, starts rubbing his head. And I'm like, yo, what is going on here? So he was a great coach. He, helped change lives, the trajectory of some of those kids' lives, some of the men that played for him. And like I said, those guys swear by him.
So when you say technically what was it about was it just
I think it's the way he saw the game. I think it's the way he taught offense, especially the motion offense, and really mastering that. They were really hard to guard because it wasn't set plays. It was actions and the reads and whatever. I thought how hard he got his teams to play. I thought strategically, like, there was, people will always say, like, if you had one game and you could pick any coach in college, one game to win, who would it be? I think a lot of people would pick, just for one game, Coach Knight, because of his brilliance. He was a master motivator. Now he could do it in different ways that you can't do now, but it worked for him.
Do you study other coaches?
I do. I do. I mean, there have been guys throughout. I think all coaches steal from everybody. And so you see some things, you see how a guy runs his program or some of the things they may do offensively or defensively. Yeah, they do.
All right. ACC play starts Sunday at 2 o'clock. You can get tickets, 1-800-643-7488. When we come back, we'll preview that Clemson matchup. 2 o'clock here at the Pete on Sunday here on the Jeff Capel Show on the Pitt Panthers Radio Network. When you play 20 conference games, sometimes they don't all come in a row,
Yeah.
and the Clemson Tigers will be here at 2 o'clock on Sunday. What are your thoughts on – you opened up with Florida State a couple of years ago.
Yeah, first game of the season.
Right.
No, it's exciting. We're ready. We're anxious. I think they're really good. I actually think they're one of the better teams in the country. I thought before we even played games, I thought they would be one of the better teams in our league. I thought they were really good last year. I thought they should have been an NCAA tournament team. I think they have one of the best players in our league in P.J. Hall. They're very physical. And this year I had a chance to look at them and start studying them yesterday. They're really shooting the ball well from the perimeter, from the three-point line, and from the foul line. P.J. Hall is like a double-double guy, but he's also shooting threes this year. They're a really, really good basketball team.
All bigs shoot threes now, don't they?
They all want to.
Well, you win in Alabama. They had won 19 in a row.
Yeah.
To go down there and win a game. And Brad Brownell is known for his defense, but to your point, they're scoring the basketball this year.
That was the thing that was probably most surprising to me as I watched that game was how well they scored. And he's kind of turned them loose a little bit. They've given them more freedom. They're playing them faster. They're pushing it. I think Chase Hunter is an outstanding guard. He's an older guy. Joe Girard is there now. I think they're a really good basketball team.
Joe Girard couldn't have gone to another conference. Like you haven't seen him
it's
enough.
crazy. They have a guy. It was almost like I joked with Brad Brownell and Kevin Keats. It's like NC State and Clemson made a trade. So they're starting. I think he's still starting. They're starting three-man. Came from NC State. Clemson's backup big transferred to NC State. So it's like they made a trade.
It is crazy.
This is what this
thing
thing has come to now. Yeah,
it is the world. Last year was a game. Obviously, that was tough, and
yeah.
Not to bring up that memory, but are there? Teams are so different.
Yeah.
Can you even pull much from that, or?
Well, we have to finish. I think we were up 8 at like 4 minutes left, and they made an adjustment and went zone. And for whatever reason, for the rest of the game, we couldn't make a shot. And I watched some of our game from them last year, and I watched the last part, and we got wide open looks, whether it was three, whether it was drives or pull-ups, and we didn't make shots, and they made some huge plays down the stretch. And it was a great game, but they were able to come in here and beat us. Look, we have to be able to match the level of physicality. That's it. And we have to be able to have poise and be mentally and physically tough, but the mental part is going to be big. We have to be able to make shots. We have to be able to play through physicality and not turn to the refs or turn looking at the bench, thinking
Right.
Because they are a team. They touch you every possession. They foul you every possession. I've been coaching against Brad since he was at Wilmington and I was at VCU. That's the way his teams were there. He's a really, really good coach. And so we have to be mentally and physically tough.
And you can't get frustrated.
Can't get frustrated. Cannot get frustrated. Have to play.
All right, Jeff, good luck.
Appreciate it.
2 o'clock.
All right.
When we come back, you mentioned NCAA tournament. NCAA tournament's happening right here in this building in, I don't know, I'm bad at this, 22 hours? 21 hours and 18 minutes. We'll start the first game, and then the Pitt Panthers come your way at 7 o'clock against Coppin State. Head coach Dan Fischer will join us as we continue on the Jeff Capel Show on the Pitt Panthers Radio Network. We're live at the Pitt Studios. I think they refer to this as the house that Fish built, the Fish Report built. We're joined by head coach Dan Fischer. Volleyball NCAA tournament starts tomorrow at 4 o'clock with UMBC against USC, and then the Pitt Panthers at 7 against Coppin State. Congrats on 7th straight year in the NCAA tournament.
It feels good to say that. Yeah.
Well, how is this? before we get into the tournament and explaining a little bit, how has it gotten to this point? Explain the work that's gone in and the people that have kind of helped you along the way get Pitt Volleyball to where it's the talk of the city.
Yeah, this is my 11th season, and I took the job, and I didn't know much about the town. I knew we were moving into the ACC. That was part of me taking it, and I think I came in with eyes wide open of, hey, this is a Power 5 job. I better get in the NC2A tournament in the first 5 years, or they might not want me back. But to think that we would have 9,000 fans and volleyball would be as big as it is right now in this country, I had no idea. And so there's just been, first it was making the tournament, then it was getting past the second round, and so there's just been these steps along the way, and just trying to get a little bit better every year.
What's the gratification for you when you go places now and say, hey, I'm with Pitt Volleyball, and they go, oh yeah, we saw you, or we know what you guys have done, or what you guys do and the style you play?
Yeah, it's certainly not why we do what we do, but it certainly feels good to have your work be noticed.
But it's easier to walk into recruits' home now because they know about you, they've seen you. You don't have to bring a big resume with you.
Recruiting's always hard, but we are. It's pretty rare we don't get a phone call with the top kids, and you're seeing some of that with this freshman class. Is depending on how you rank it, but for us, we think it's one of the best in the country.
Yeah, Olivia Babcock and Tori Stafford, and what is impressive about those two particularly is they seem to get better there doesn't seem to be that sign where anything has been overwhelming or they've been fatigued. How is it that they are able to continue to elevate their games?
Yeah, that's been that's been the most impressive has been, especially with Olivia, the consistency of, it's just been really rare where she hasn't hit over 300 or especially over 200. She's just been carrying a big load offensively, and same with Tori. She was good when she came in, but she just keeps plugging away at parts of her game and improving.
How has the rest of the team accepted the fact that these freshmen are playing so well or made such an impact?
I think it became clear immediately, and not just with them two, because Blair and Haiti, with when they came in the gym, it was not just like, hey, some girls are in our gym and they're freshmen. It became clear that, hey, they're not just in the practice, they're elevating the practice. And so I think our team captain, she has done a good job of recognizing that and making it feel like, hey, we're all equals. There's not like any pecking order.
You mentioned Chiamaka Wokolo, your team captain. She has done whatever you need, team first. How has that kind of permeated itself through that room?
Well, for those of you that don't know, she had a fifth year and initially wasn't going to take it and was working in a law office. And as we were putting together this team, I had this. We still needed another middle, and I had this feeling that, we got a lot of talent. We can compete for an ACC championship, we can compete for a national championship, but we don't really have the leader or the queen bee in the locker room. And so I just went to a coffee with her a week before the transfer portal opened up, and we had been talking about her coming back. It had never been a closed door, and I said, hey, if you're thinking about it, we kind of need to know pretty quick here. And she decided to give it another go, and I just think she's been a huge part of this team's success so far.
And then you have another key player coming back next year. Valeria Vasquez Gomez has decided she is going to come back for another year.
Yep, and it's there's 6th year of eligibility is pretty rare, but it made sense for her academically, and we're thrilled that we get one more season with her.
How does she lead?
She's become even recently a little bit more of a leader vocally, but I think it's just the things that I value about her is she's consistently works hard, and she's someone that I guess has the coach's back, and I think when new players come to the program, they see the older players value the relationships with the coaches and like the way we do things. I think that says a lot.
NCAA volleyball here at the Peterson Events Center. You can get tickets 800-643-7488. 8 is the number. Or go to PittsburghPanthers.com. You can find links to get tickets. The atmosphere is crazy. We saw it. We saw it last year with Georgia Tech. We saw it with Louisville with the 9,000 that you mentioned. There's an energy about it that's if you haven't seen it, it really is unique, isn't it, Dan?
Especially the Louisville game this year was I think we took it to another level with the comeback and just the noise in the fifth set. It was
just like drama. You wanted to go down 2-0, so everybody could talk about the fifth set.
Yeah, the evidence would suggest that, but I'd prefer to do it another way.
More with Dan Fischer as we continue. It's a Jeff Capel Show on the Pitt Panthers Radio Network. You see the Oakland Zoo, and you wonder, that would be a cool place to sit and hang out. Well, there are 3 games where you can go into the zoo, $30 tickets. You get a T-shirt as a part of it, and you get to sit right on the court. Opportunity to join the Oakland Zoo, 800-643-7488. That's for the South Carolina State and Purdue-Fort Wayne games, for 2 games for you in the zoo. We're joined by head coach Dan Fischer. You can use that same number to get tickets for the NCAA volleyball tournament. How is that different? People might have, it's a basketball show, they might have March Madness on the brain. How does NCAA
I think
work?
that's a good comparison, actually. So it's very similar. We're a 64-team bracket. I think there's actually a similar number. I think we're at 330 total programs in the country. So we're down to 64. The difference is we play 2 in a weekend. And so since we were a top 4 seed in the country, we have a chance to host all the way up into the Final Four. The Final Four is a fixed site every year. This year it's in Tampa. And so, it's loser go home, or winner go home rather. And it's an exciting time for us.
So the first game is at 4 o'clock, UMBC against USC. That winner will face the winner, Panthers and Coppin State.
Mm-hmm.
And that will be on Saturday at 7. What kind of challenge is Coppin State going to provide for you?
Well, they're on a roll. They haven't, they've won 3 games in a row and haven't lost a set. And, I think they've got some good arms. But I think we have a pretty big advantage in serve and pass and in transition.
We haven't talked about Rachel Fairbanks, and I don't know if it's the direct quarterback comparison, but she does everything for your team, it seems.
That is the most common comparison, is the setter being the quarterback of the team. And this year we've had her in different roles. Sometimes we've had her hit, but this year she's been primarily setting. So this year it's a true quarterback comparison, yeah, I'd say.
What makes her so steady and so good at what she does?
The way we evaluate just the setting part. Okay, now she's also a good defender and server and blocker, but just the setting part is we look at, out of 100 balls that she sets, we call them bogeys. Balls that like a hitter just can't score on. And how good is the set, and then how few times does she misfire? And so I think this year her percentage of misfires is very low, and her percentage of balls that are in the hitter's window is really high.
You mentioned the crowd, and you had Doran Dickerson, who was an All-American football player, talk to your team. I don't know. I'm sure you're locked in, but after games, you probably look around and see there's football players, basketball players, other dignitaries that are here. What's that like for you to see that kind of excitement?
Well, the only other place I've been, it says one thing, is that I think volleyball's finally becoming mainstream in America. And I used to coach at the University of Hawaii, where it is there, and you see the most famous people at the games. But it's cool to see it happening. Not just here, but this year has been such a huge season for women's volleyball that you're getting attention of some pretty famous people.
And it's been on the radio this year for the first time ever. That's made history. And Friday is going to be on the radio as well.
Yeah,
at 7 o'clock.
Excited about that.
Cool. Dan, thank you. Best of luck to you.
Thanks for having me, and appreciate all the support from the city of Pittsburgh. Let's keep it going.
7 o'clock, the Panthers take on Coppin State. Our thanks to Dan, to Jeff, to Sam, and Joel. I'm Jeff Hathorn saying good night from the Jeff Capel Show on the Pitt Panthers Radio Network.